Hey there YouTube, AJ here. And as you know, I'm working on a hot rod in my little garage here. And as you also may know, my little garage doesn't have a lot of space. As you can see, I have it pretty filled up with crap. Back there's the hot rod, the body's up there. I have a trailer folded up over there. You know, I got a spare engine block down there. You know, just wherever I can put stuff, I got stuff. So it's a mess. And that mess is also compounded because I like to skateboard. So I can skateboard on my lunch. I've built myself a whole bunch of skateboard obstacles. Well, I have to store those in this little garage as well. So I have like this box here. I've got my cones. I have a ramp there. I have a ramp back there. I've got this rail. So I've got all this skateboard stuff in the way. So I really have to learn how to maximize my space. So today's project's going to be working on getting some stuff cleaned up and maximizing my space, focusing on one thing. I have this cart here that came with this little lathe I bought. So I bought this little metal lathe this summer, and in the future I plan to completely rebuild this thing, but it's bolted to this steel cart, and turns out this steel cart is really nice. It's actually was a bonus that I wasn't expecting when I bought the lathe. I really like the cart. It's really heavy duty. I've even mounted a vise to it. You can't even see the vise right now. It's over back there someplace. And anyway, and it's got some nice features. It has electricity wired into it, and you know, it's got a power switch for the lathe here. So it's just it turned out to be really good. And as you can see, I've ended up using it to store a lot of tools and garbage. And the whole reason I've been doing that is so when I go to work on the hot rod, I can just kind of roll that cart out of the way, and it's got most of my metal working tools on it, my cutters, my grinders and vice grips and stuff like that, and it just kind of puts everything in one place. Now for the most part, I really like using this as a tool cart and keeping all my stuff together and keeping it mobile so I can move it in and out as I need to. However, when I go to move it, it often causes a problem. Well, so that time only a tape measure fell off, but a lot of times stuff on the lower level, which obviously is not organized, starts to fall off. You can see this box is, you know, just kind of barely sitting on there. And anyway, it's got to get organized. So now you can see what we're working with here. Got this big empty space on the bottom part of the cart, and then the main space on top with the little lathe and my vise and the motor to run the lathe. Everything that was on this cart, we have some miscellaneous tools and pieces of the hot rod parts over here. We have in the gray box, we have a porta bandsaw. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 4.5 inch angle grinders, a 1/2 inch drill, a drill driver and a drill. We have a 7-inch angle grinder. We have a surface conditioning tool. We have drums for that tool. We have pieces and parts and for the other grinders. We have all that stuff that was on there that were actually tools. Most of that I want to go back on it. You know, a lot of these little tools need to go where they belong, not on this cart. They were just thrown there temporarily, which became permanent. On this cart we also have some pieces of bed frame cut up that are leftovers from other projects, and I'm thinking to use some of that steel in this project to make it more storage friendly and not as apt to fall apart. Now over here, parts of this was also in the cart, but parts of it wasn't. Anyway, this pile of blue metal is actually what used to be this cart. So I got this cart from behind a Napa store that was throwing it out. I went there to get a battery for my Jeep. Side note, can you believe the battery in my Jeep only lasted 8 years? I mean, come on Jeep, can't you put better equipment in it? Anyway, no, that's amazing, isn't it? 8 years on a battery. I was mad when my battery conked out on me until I realized that battery was 8 years old, and I was like, oh, that's pretty good. Anyway, back to this cart. So I got this cart from behind a Napa store, And my thought process is I can use these two pieces of it. Got to straighten this one out, obviously. It's pretty banged up and twisted, which is obviously part of the reason they threw it out. But anyhow, I'm thinking once I get it straightened out, and I can use these two in here as shelves. And not only will I be able to use them as shelves, I'll also be able to use them as places to hang tools from and try to organize all this. Now, one other thing I want to try to implement storage for in this cart is this old wooden toolbox that I have been hanging on to forever. I actually built this in like 7th grade shop, industrial arts class, wood shop, whatever you want to call it. That's what we call it, industrial arts. And it's been banging around with me all my life, just holding random stuff. So like right now it's got a bunch of railroad spikes in it. But yeah, anyway, I want to try to incorporate some kind of storage for it on here as well, and use it to separate out some tools or something. I don't know yet. So that's what we got going on here. So all in all, I think it's a good project to spend a little time away from the hot rod on, because if I get this organized and get it to where it's a lot more user friendly, I'll be able to work better on the hot rod and the motorcycle by having my mobile tool bench with me, you know, whatever you want to call it. I don't even know what I'm going to call this thing yet. So I also use this Black & Decker Workmate a lot, along with my little mobile bench grinder. So hopefully I'll be able to put storage in there for the bench grinder. And I'm thinking somehow of using the old handle off of the Napa cart somehow on here to hang my Black & Decker Workmate on for storage for that as well. That's where we're starting at. Let's see what we can do with it. Okay, so I guess the first thing I need to do is to get this one shelf here back into some kind of usable shape. Okay, well, it's mostly rectangular again. What I want to do now, though, is just kind of figure out my shelf levels. Looks like that's about as... I kind of wanted this to be higher. That's where it's wedging in down here. And I kind of wanted my lowest shelf, or my first shelf, to be higher than that. A couple ways I can achieve that. I could take this up to where this bottom part hits the slanted area, bend this in and fold those over, or vice versa. That would get me a little taller. One thing I got to keep in mind on this bottom shelf, it's very important I have room for my porta-bin. And that my lowest shelf has to at least be this low, plus a little to clear the handle on my porta cable box. So 1.5 inches would be fine. I think if we take and bend this in, bend these over, and slide this up as far as we can, that'll give me a reasonable amount of space to be able to use these drawers still from each other. Yeah, all right, we're gonna go with that. What we need to do now is mark one of these for a bend. All right, so I want to bend this out right now. I want this bend to be on the outside of my folds. So we're just going to bend that out for a little bit. Okay, perfect. And I'm just gonna eyeball this. I got these holes in this side and this side, so I can actually use that to draw a pretty good line to match up the angle. Clamp onto this. Fortunately, this doesn't have to be exact.
Now, bring this back in. Okay.
Got an issue over on that corner. You can see where the screws to mount the electric switch came through the back side. So that's going to cause me a problem. Unless I get really lucky. If I get really lucky, it'll fit right between them. It's going to fit below them anyway. Alright, that's not bad. That is not good at all. We do not have enough space here. So that is not going to work. I won't be able to get into this, and even if I bring it to this side to offset it, I still won't be able to get into it the way I want to. This has to go up higher. And if I put it between there, I think having it between those screws over there is the right height. I think that'll allow us to have plenty of room to put our grinders in. That gives us plenty of room between here. But that also means it's too long over here. So what we got to do is cut it down. Which that's not too bad.
So what I need to do, measure my length, right above that screw. It looks like right at 29 inches long.
So basically we're going to have to reshape this shelf at 29 inches long. So what we got to do now, got this all marked up at the 29-inch mark here. Cut my bit angle, or drew my angle back in as well. So what I got to do is take this, bend it back out, hammer this seam, hammer this bend flat. Take where I folded over these corners, do the same thing, fold them out flat. And I think what I'll do is I will cut a lot of this metal off. I'll probably leave like an inch and cut a little relief here so I can bend that over more square. And then I will leave like an inch folded in. We'll rebend it all back into this shape and it should fit up higher where we need it now. Alright, so we have our shorter version. And again, still need to do some shaping here, but we're going to test fit it. Well, cut it a little too short, but it'll do. We'll figure it out. Will we still have room to put that in there? Oh yeah, plenty. That'll work. So it's a little shorter than I wanted. Like my bend, that was like a 1/4 inch off over here. But it'll work. We can make this work. I did notice though, because I want to put these in to where they're underneath and not outside of the cart, they hang down past this shelf. That's all right. We won't offset the shelves. There's still plenty of room in there to get into it. We'll be fine. Let's get this one clamped in position over there.
This is where it would be really nice to have a helper.
All right, so that's pretty close to where I want it. It's pretty level on the back side, although it doesn't look it. It's a little lower on this side, but we'll get it figured out. But we'll go off that corner, and from the inside bottom, or the inside top here, to the bottom edge, it's 8.5 inches. So we'll have to make up some drops to come down 8.5 inches to catch over here, and then one here. Now we'll be able to weld to that post and this post, so that'll be easy side. So we got to make up some drops to do that. And when we make up those drops, we want to actually make them long enough to support this shelf as well. So we want those drops to actually be more like let's call them 16. Yeah, we'll make those drops at 16. Bring them down, catch this shelf, weld those all together. I'll be able to hang these here. Yeah, I'll be fine. I was actually going to make little U's in the edge of this shelf to keep these from sliding around. But I don't know if I want to do that now because this is a rolled edge, and I can always cut that in later if I think I need it. I think what I'll do is for now is I'll just go ahead and just keep putting them in there like that, and then if I find they're moving around too much, then I will make the little divots to store them individually. But I think for now this will be good. So these pieces, which are the uprights on the blue cart, on the blue Napa cart, they have this bend in here for strength, and where the shelves are bolted to it, that flange is just removed. So what I'll do is I'll come up 18, this bottom flange I'll be able to use. So we'll just go ahead and leave that the way it is. And we'll come up 18 inches, cut it off, and then wherever the other shelf hits, I'll just notch out that flange so they'll fit in there good and tight. And that'll only work for this corner here. For this side, I can't use, I can use a corner piece, but what I'll do is I'll just cut all the way through the wider flange, make my notches bigger. We can do this. Well, I made a mistake. I forgot. I forgot I wasn't putting this all the way out on the corner. I have to bring this drop inside of this lip here. So I got to cut this flange off, move it in, which means I can't bolt it the way I planned to do it there. But that's all right. We get proof of concept. I think it's all going to work out all right. So to fix this little snafu, where this isn't going to be mounted here, it needs to be mounted kind of inboard a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just cut a slot here so this will drop in over it. Now, we got our slot cut here. Okay, we need a level. All right, well, this isn't going to be perfect, but you might as well try to get it kind of level and square. I think that'll work. So now what we want to do is get our Sharpie. These brackets on the front here, I'm going to bolt and weld them, bolt them together, then tack weld them. Basically, if I get them bolted in position, everything will hold itself nicely together while I go to weld it together. Okay, I see. See if that got it. Better. It's actually not bad where it's at. We're sitting pretty level. Things work the way I'm envisioning. Being able to hang all my grinders right there in this row. And then, what else? So I guess what I gotta do now is mark where I need to remove the paint for welding. Up here, around where these posts weld in, on the sides over there. That way I can get everything tacked together and welded. Okay, well, we got our shelf all pretty much welded together. Got some places I need to touch up. We'll get to that. Got it clamped in position now. But one of the things this whole project is supposed to be for is to teach me to weld thinner sheet metal, because I'm coming up on parts of my project on my hot rod where I'm going to need to weld thinner sheet metal rather than heavier steel, and it takes a little more finesse, and that's what I'm trying to do, is learn how not to burn through, you know, this thin stuff. So yeah, my welds aren't great yet, just like all my other welding, but you know, I'm getting the hang of it, getting better all the time, so you can't learn without doing. So anyway, now I got another challenge ahead of me. I'm going to start welding the shelving stuff to the actual cart, and the cart is thicker steel than this, so I've got to balance that, getting penetration on the thick part and the thin part without burning through the thin part. So here we go. Alright, again, not the best welds in the world, but it's solid. Seems like it's all going to hold for what it needs to do here. Yeah, I'm not going to win prettiest welder award, but you know, we'll take it for now. Maybe we'll look at this later. This is just iteration 1 of this cart, so we're not done yet for the iteration 1. We got this welded in, so that's good. Now I want to look at, see, like, just for moving the cart around, this box is already starting to shift out, so I want to look at figuring out a way to hold things into position on the bottom. I guess we'll take a look at that next. Today we're working in the big garage because it's just pouring rain down outside. As I mentioned yesterday, the first thing I want to do is like kind of fix this stuff on the bottom to where it doesn't slide around. I already see a problem, but let me get some crap cleared off of this, and so I can show you what I'm talking about. Okay, that's better. On the bottom shelf here, I have my 3 major pieces that I want to have on the shelf. My portable grinder. I take this thing and I clamp it down onto my workmate and use it out in the yard a lot, so I want to keep that like that where it's handy. My old wooden toolbox I built in like 7th grade shop class, and my porta-band that was given to me by my father. Now, how I thought I was going to keep these all in place, because I don't want them sliding around when I'm moving the cart. My thought was I was going to take some of this old bed frame and try to line up some pieces on the bottom to kind of hold them from sliding around the corners and such. And then over here, the corner of the post itself here would hold the other corner. And that would, if I like put it in that corner and this corner, that's going to keep it from moving. However, I instantly ran into a problem because of the way I laid them out here already. And hopefully I can fix that pretty simply. And the problem is that if you come over here to this side, if I box in this corner and this corner on the porta-band, I don't have enough room to get my hand in here to lift it up and take it out. So hopefully this is a simple fix. And then put the porta-band on this side. Now, the reason I wanted the toolbox on this side was because it's open, and I was worried about chips falling from the lathe into the toolbox. But it's covered up pretty well by this shelf. I don't think it'll be that big of a deal. And then with the porta-band on this side, I can put in my pieces and I can still lift it up and take it out of there. So I think we'll be okay there. If we put in a piece of angle iron that runs in between the two here a little bit. So let's call it, we have 4 from here to here. So let's say we make that, let's make it about 7 inches. We'll cut about 7 inches so it'll slide back here, and then we'll make it go this way. I don't know, what do you think? I think 3 inches will be enough. Sure, that's more than this is, so we'll make it 3 inches. So we'll go 7 inches into the middle here, 3 inches over this way, and then we'll need another 3-inch piece to weld to it to come out this way for to hold the corner of the toolbox. Okay, so I will bend this all the way to the 90 and weld that together, and that will slide in. And then it slides in there and it'll get welded to the bottom. This piece will go under the toolbox and get welded to this piece and the bottom as well. So this will give us a nice little sturdy corner. Everything will be held in place there that we can lift it out and still use the pieces as we needed. Then for now, this is going to go just on here someplace, however I need it, and we'll deal with that later. It might just sit there and we leave this empty space. I don't know, maybe we have something to lay here. I don't know yet. We're not going to weld right now because the welder's in the other garage, and again, it's raining. Okay, next up, I'm going to throw some rubber liner in these, mainly just because, you know, keep it quiet, keep stuff from shifting around, you know, just make it a better experience, I guess. I don't know. Maybe overkill for something like this, but, you know, I think keeping stuff from banging metal on metal just as it rolls around and stuff, it'll be nice. All right, so next thing we're gonna do, I don't know if you noticed earlier, when I hang my grinders up here, the cords are still all haywire. So I bought a bunch of Velcro strap wranglers. So I'm going to add these to each of the grinders so I can keep the cords from being just all everywhere. I got a feeling I'm going to find dealing with those little strap retainer things a pain and a hassle, but I gotta admit, this is gonna make it so much nicer when I'm rolling stuff around that these cords aren't dragging the ground and getting in my way. So hopefully I will stay diligent and use those. I do have another thing I want to address, and that is when rolling this cart in and out of my garages. Not so much out, because there's a lip coming into my garage, or like a 1/2 inch raised lip. So going out, it goes out fairly easy, come over it. Not a big deal. But coming back in, the casters on the cart catch on that lift, and I have to actually try to get a hold of it some way and lift and pull to get it into the garage. And it's not easy. And actually, the shelf is going to make that harder because it's kind of in the way now. So originally, my thought was to take this handle that was on my old Napa cart and try to attach it and make a handle so I could lift this thing up easy going in and out of the garage. However, I can't really put it this way because it's in the way of my door. I guess I could put it that way. And it's still kind of awkward. It's not the best. And I'm not so sure how strong it would be. Welding to this chrome, this is really thin chrome steel, and welding to it, I don't know how well that would work out. I could bolt it, but again, same kind of issues, and it's still not the handiest because of this is kind of still in the way. And the handle's just in a weird position. The angle of it is down, so it's not really ergonomically comfortable. So every time I go to grab this thing to move it, I'm always trying to grab like in this area, and it's like just not working out. And I thought, well, I need some kind of handles like here. So thinking about this, And I was like, what kind of handles could I get to do that with? And you know, sure, I could go buy something. And then all of a sudden I realized I have tons of handles. They come with every one of these grinders. And I've got grinders that I don't no longer have that have died and gone the way of the dodo. And I still have the handles for them because I keep them all. So my thought process is, obviously this is a bigger handle, and this is off one of my, either my bigger grinder or my surface conditioning tool. So I don't want to use that one. This is a smaller, older handle, but I only have one of these, and I've got other ones. And then I remembered I have 2 new grinders yet that I have not even opened up because I bought them really cheap. And I thought, they're gonna each have a handle in there. Ah, here we go. So I have 2 matching handles. So what I was thinking, why not drill, tap this steel, and then put a nut on the back side, and I'll have 2 handles that I can just lift up real easy and move this thing in and out. So that's our next step. Now, I don't have a nut that fits this. That means it's metric, most likely. So conveniently, I stored my metric tap set in there. Bigger than 6 mil, because 6 mil is about a quarter. Next up would be 8, M8 1.25. All right, so that's the size, M8 1.25. All right, so I got our M8 1.25 tap ready to go. I looked up online and it says I need a 6.8 millimeter hole for this tap. I don't have a 6.8 millimeter bit. Closest thing on my metrics bits is 6.5. I don't have a 17/64 bit apparently, which would be pretty close. So we're gonna go with this. Put some cutting fluid on there. And I'm just gonna give it a swirl for good luck, since it needs to be a smidge bigger.
Put a little cutting fluid on the tap itself. There we go.
Hopefully, these will thread right in. There's one. Okay, now those are pretty secure already, just like that. But what I'll do is I'll put a nut on the back side of it just to give it extra strength. And then, you know, I can lift it up to move it in and out. So that works. So, now we got our handles in place. Next on the line, I want to make some way to attach this to the cart so it'll store with it. Okay, initially I was going to try to mount this over here, kind of in and out of the way, but it makes it a lot wider. You know, this is like 8 inches deep here, so it makes the cart too wide really. So I don't really like that. So I started looking at mounting it on this end, and it only adds an inch on each side for the width. So I think that's what we're going to do, is try to mount it on this sloped face here. To do that, what I've come up with, I got these casters off of that bed frame, And I was looking at this bracket here, and if I mount it on that slope face this way, it'll give it a slight tilt back up, and I think I can just hang it onto this bracket. So I'm going to go ahead and modify 2 of these brackets. Basically, I'm going to cut off this part here that's not flat, and of course knock out these rivets. I'm going to be hanging it like this, so I'm going to be cutting the brackets off, I don't know, about 1.5 inches or so, because they'll basically be hitting this part here, and the weight will be on the top part of the workmate. My workmate's seen better days. I'm either going to have to refurbish this one completely or get a new one, but for now we're going to keep using it. Okay, it works. Seems pretty good. I could always put a bungee on here or something if I need to, but I think it'll be fine. It seems to be sitting pretty solid. Got one more thing I want to do to this, and that is power. As I've said before, there is power to the motor here, and it goes to that switch on the far side. And originally I was just going to change that switch box and wire some outlets over there. And I got to thinking, I have these little lights to work with, and they take a USB charger to charge up. And I got to thinking I'd like to have something where out here where I could charge those as well. So I bought this. So the idea is I mount this onto the cart itself. I plug my motor into this. The switch will still run the motor independently on that side, but I'll have one power source in. I can have multiple tools plugged in while I work, and I'll be able to charge with my USB ports here. I'll be able to charge my little flashlights as well. Okay, so our mount holes are little keyhole slots here. Let me go see if I can find a scrap of metal that I can make a mounting plate for this, and then I can just weld the mounting plate onto here. Okay, to be honest, this project was a success. I'm happy how it turned out. However, the video has just sucked. I've had so many issues with this video. It's too long for one. Nobody's gonna watch this whole thing, and I don't blame you. I wouldn't either. I'm gonna put a disclaimer at the beginning of this video that says, go to the end and just watch the summary. But if you wanna go back and look at the rest of the stuff and details on how I did things, please feel free to do so. But try to watch like the last 3 minutes at least. That said, filming this video has been a nightmare because the weather has been crappy every time I've had to work on this. And that has been happening for the entire month because all my neighbors decided to get this nice stone wall put in, which looks really good and it's nice. But I've been putting up with the construction and that running of that concrete saw for a month straight. So basically trying to narrate a video while you're outside working has been impossible because it's just constant concrete saw. That said, let's get this wrapped up. So I'm real happy with how it turned out. I've got my handles put on. They work well. I welded in a little plate of steel to mount my power strip to. That then bolted it on from the back. Now I have my power outlets. I will plug my motor into this. And the switch still runs my motor. I have USB outlets to charge my little flashlights. I have my shelves mounted in nice and solid. I've got my tabs mounted to hold my workmate nice and solid. And then I also have my angle iron brackets to hold my big porta cable box and my little toolbox in place. I also have rubberized liner on the shelves to keep the sound down. So I think everything's going to fit on here the way I'm planning. All this crap will be up and out of the way, and I think I'm even going to have room for more stuff. So let's get it all loaded up here. So there you have it. It's fully loaded. It's pretty much organized. It is now holding everything that was on it before, plus a bunch of stuff that wasn't. So it's freed up more space, and I actually have some room to put some other things on there if I need to. It's pretty heavy now, so it's going to be a nice solid work platform. Overall, it's got a couple things I'll probably adjust later. I'll probably make some additions. I'll probably put some dividers in the trays, things like that. I think what I want to do now is live with it. I think what I want to do now is just live with it, especially through. I think what I want to do with it now is just live with it for the rest of the winter and see what I want to change. It'll probably get tweaked again. I know when I go to rebuild the lathe, I'm taking it off there, and I'm going to completely strip it and paint it so it looks nice at least, and make any adjustments I need then. In the meantime, at least now I have more space to deal with. I have to, at least, come on, please. I'm getting so frustrated trying to speak in between the time the concrete saw revs down and revs back up again. I get like 10 to 20 seconds of time to talk. So at least now I'll have more space to work with in the garage. I'll have everything more compact, easy to move out real quick when I need to work. So it should help me get moving on my hot rod project again. So at least I'm grateful for that. And I give up. I give up trying to talk in between the revs of the concrete saw. So I'm going to sign off here and hopefully make some better videos for you later. Until then, YouTube, later. Thank you for watching if you've watched at least the last 3 minutes. And if you've watched the entire thing, bless you.